shrimp is something I usually have in the freezer, whether it's for me to eat or for bait, which I know sounds crazy, but that's what I just made this recipe like a month or so ago, but it was leftover like cooked shrimp that I had from using as bait to catch salmon.
Welcome to Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens, a show for people who embrace the warm and cozy spirit of everyday living in the Midwest. From the blog Random Sweets, I'm your host, Staci Mergenthal. Born and raised in South Dakota, Alice Klopstad stayed for college and the start of her corporate career. Then Alaska captured her heart, and now she calls it home. Join me in hearing Alice's adventurous and inspiring story of moving to a place where she's embraced the outdoor lifestyle, hiking, snow machining, fishing, foraging, and filling an entire freezer with fresh-caught halibut and salmon. When she's not out exploring, Alice is baking sourdough bread, sewing and quilting, she's cozying up with books from the Anchorage Public Library, planning her next international travel adventure, visiting with family, or responding to moose down texts from friends summoning her to help when their hunt is successful. Alice shares 3 of her favorite recipes with us today: roasted shrimp enchiladas, her grandma Joyce's Danish butter cookies, and a comforting classic from her friend Jill, potatoes Romanoff. You can view this episode's photos and recipes on my website, randomsweets.com. And if you like this episode, please rate, comment, share with your friends and family. And if you aren't already, sign up to get alerts when new episodes are available. Alice, welcome to Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens.
Thank you.
I keep calling this in my mind the Alice in Alaska show, because every time I talk about you, I'm always sharing things with my husband and stuff. I'm like, my friend Alice in Alaska. I have known you for quite a few years. You have an incredible story to share. You do so many things that, luckily, because of social media, although you live in Alaska, we get to see all your adventures. It's like all the adventures, Alaskan adventures of Alice.
Yes.
And I noticed that you make food and things like that. I know I've seen maybe you've had people, your family have sent you little care packages, and there's goodies in there that are only from South Dakota or the
Yes.
Midwest, maybe not just South Dakota. But so I just want to hear a lot about everything that's going on. I haven't talked to you for a long time. So introduce yourself and tell us where you work, live.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
I am originally from South Dakota, and Staci and I met actually in Brookings when I was working at or when we were both working at Daktronics, and both no longer there, of course. But I lived there. I grew up in Yankton, South Dakota, and then I spent 10 years, I think it was, in Brookings when I went to college there and started working at Daktronics as a student, then an intern, and then full time. I was able to moved to Alaska during that time, asked Daktronics if I could keep my job, and continued working from home. And that was in 2021. I live in Eagle River, which is just north of Anchorage, and made it up here arrived in June 2021 after taking 7 days to drive from South Dakota with my trailer, all my belongings, and myself. My parents still live in Yankton, South Dakota, and they raised one of my nieces. And then I have another niece and nephew who live in Colorado with my sister and her family. Alaska, what occupies my time here and why I chose to live here and move here. I just love everything outdoors. I like to fish and hike and ride my bike, garden, and can when I am able to. The growing season's a little bit different up here. I love to read and cook and bake. I quilt on the side is one of my other indoor hobbies. Everything's mostly outdoors. And I recently switched jobs, and I work for a local telecommunications company here in Alaska.
That's a long list of things. The quilting, I kind of chuckle because I'm like, well, of course she's got to stay inside every once in a while. I mean, it snows, right? You get blizzards, and although you probably do you ski? Do you snow ski, or when you wear the shoes? What's that called?
Snowshoeing.
Like the snowshoeing, yeah.
I have snowshoes. I have cross country skis. I haven't we used to go every year in high school and middle school to Colorado to ski and snowboard, but I haven't done that up here. Just stay flat on the cross country skiing. And then my friends, they have snow machines, so we do that. And in the mid lower 48, it's usually, snowmobiles. Up here we call it snow machining. So we do a
Oh,
fair amount
okay.
of that too. So I got to do that for the first time last year up here.
I thought when you said snow machine, I thought, oh my gosh, your friends make snow.
I hear that a lot, more than you'd think, actually.
Oh gosh. And so canning, what kinds of things are you canning?
Whatever I can get my hands on up here. You really kind of need a greenhouse when you live in Alaska, just because, I mean, it's in the summer, it's light 24 hours, but you really need a
Yeah.
good balance of sun and rain. But this year I did some jalapenos. I did blueberry jam. We do a lot of foraging up here, whatever we can get our hands on. So I'd picked a lot of blueberries and done jam, and then fireweed is a beautiful pink flower here, and I've made fireweed jam. I did that this year, and
Oh,
gosh, what else? I canned some salmon and halibut just to give that a shot, and I haven't done a whole lot other than that this year anyway, but whatever we can get our hands on, we can can it.
I should preface, people can't see you in this, we're on video, but I should preface that you're young and you don't have to share your age, but you're young and you're doing all kinds of things that I could not have imagined doing at your age. So this is
Uh,
very cool.
Thanks. I always get called an old soul, and I have grandma hobbies like my reading and my quilting, but and same thing, cooking and baking. But it just gives me something to do. I'm always busy with something, clearly.
Right. And we follow each other on Goodreads. You're on Goodreads.
Hmm.
You read a ton as well,
Yeah.
where I don't know how you find time, but what's kind of I can't think of what sort of the genre that you do, or do you have multiple like most people that you like to
I
read?
do a lot of different genres. Usually I'm reading a book for entertainment, whether that's like historical nonfiction or like keep books that are going to keep me up at night with the lights on, like real true crime, I guess. And then I usually have a book for like self-development, whether that's at work or just character building, whatever. And then I usually have
Mhm.
one that's faith-based. So I'm usually rotating, and I'm a big library gal. I'm a huge advocate for the library, and I'm always waitlisted for the max amount of books I can be in the Anchorage library, and then I'll get audiobooks and ebooks, and I'll go pick up books, and so always something. So if I'm on my way to an adventure, I'll have an audiobook playing, or if I'm fishing and it's kind of slow, I'll have a book on my phone or have a book, an audiobook going, and always something to squeeze in the time.
I love the shout out to the library because I'm the same way. And
Yes.
I actually have a card at the Lake Benton Library through the
Ah,
Plum Creek Library System. So they share and we can get through MinLink and get throughout the state of Minnesota. But sometimes I can't get, so I also pay to have a library card in Brookings still,
oh
since I'm
yeah.
not in the county.
Yeah.
And then that way I have their online resources as well. Like one has Libby, one has Hoopla,
Mm-hmm.
depending on which library is which.
Yeah.
So do you
That's
ever
totally
do
fair.
physical books or are you always doing listening?
Always a physical book at some point. So I just got back from a trip traveling and overseas, and I had the physical book with me. And it was one that my dad picked up on the way to Alaska visiting. And I think he either
Oh,
finished it or didn't have time for it. So I brought that one along and brought it with me, which everybody's like, well, that's just another thing to pack. But I just like a physical book. I'm pretty old fashioned in that way most of the time. But if I'm driving,
yeah.
I'll have an audiobook.
Yep, yep. And like you said, doing outdoor things if you're biking or something.
Yep.
Probably can't hold the book when you're riding your
Yeah.
bike.
And
Maybe
I don't
you
always
could, but
have, depending on the activity, I don't always have my headphones in because got to watch out for wildlife too, but it's a whole different ballpark up here.
oh my gosh, yeah. Like I can't have headphones in because I have to
Yep,
listen to bears.
pretty much. Bears and moose.
Jeez. Well, Midwest to Alaska. I mean, how did you end up in Alaska and taking this huge, hey, can I work from Alaska? And off you go. And how did that happen?
Yeah, my aunt and uncle were both stationed in Alaska for 20, or they were in the Air Force 20 years, but they were in Alaska, I think it was 8 years. But my they used to go every other summer to Alaska, and my aunt had breast cancer, and we lost her actually in 2018, and then 2019 we came up to spread her ashes, and like
Mm.
sounds cheesy, but from the minute I got here, I was like, I belong here. And like, I got back a couple days before my birthday in July. And by the end of July, I'd bought a four-wheel drive vehicle and then started selling all my stuff and bought a trailer and then just moved.
Did you have a place already? I mean, sight unseen. Did you know where you were going to move
Oh,
to?
I had a place and it was during COVID. I drove up in 2021, so things were still pretty hairy. But to even get across the border through Canada, if you were driving, you had to have like proof of a job, proof of where you were going to live, and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't travel up here to see my place. I worked with a travel agent, which ironically, she was from Minnesota. So that was kind of a fun connection. We connected in a Facebook group called Moving to Alaska, but she kind of helped me look at different places. And after driving 7 days, I arrived in Eagle River and got my keys and was so excited to start my new life. And then this place was a complete dump. And I like sat there and like cried, of
Oh,
course, in true
oh
Alice
no.
fashion, and then like made a cleaning list. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I was like, I can't live here. So I called them and I ended up having to pay $1,000 to get out of that lease. So little rocky start, but
Oh
that was a
no.
Friday. I'd arrived in Alaska, but worked with that same travel agent, looked at three different places that day, ended up in Anchorage. And some of the mover or the realtor worked really hard to get me in that weekend. I called my movers to help me change the date because I had my trailer and my vehicle all packed, but I needed the bigger stuff to help move. And anyway, landed in Anchorage and lived there for a couple of years before ultimately making it back to Eagle River. It's just a little suburb of Anchorage, just north of Anchorage, but a little bit just small town feel, I guess. But yeah, so finally made it after, all those, the little bit of rocky start, but made it a good spot. So I'm excited.
I can't, that's interesting that you worked with a travel agent to move.
Yeah.
How did you think of that?
Well, she just in the moving to Alaska page, she was just like she would see people moving and asking questions, and
Oh,
travel agent and realtor like part-time dual or whatever, and so she helped with that. But
okay.
yeah.
So, I mean that to me that would be big and scary. I I mean, what would you say to other people that are like, "Oh man, I would love to just do that kind of thing."
Ugh.
What words of wisdom would you give to them?
Life's short and you have to do the things that you want to do. I There was a discussion when we were up here and my uncle said like I can tell you're wrestling with yourself and I can tell you love it
Oh,
here, and he's like what's going on, and I was like my friends and my family are all back home, in South Dakota around the area, and he's like there's technology and there's travel and lots of different things to help you stay connected. And then I just decided to do it. I think at that time I was 26 and made the move when I was 27 or 28. And I just made the leap. I didn't know a single soul who lived in Alaska. Like I said, my uncle would summer here, but I didn't know anybody. So I just had to make friends. And I just made the leap and I don't regret it a single day.
that's cool. Do you work from home or do you have kind of that work environment that you would meet people?
I do work from home and I stayed with Daktronics for a little bit. So I was working for the South Dakota company and living here and would get to go home sometimes for like our annual meeting and stuff. But the job I just took last October is also work from home, but with the option I can go into the office if I want to be social, which is a lot, but I can drive into town and it's like a 17-minute drive and not bad, and go see my leadership team who I support and do that. Otherwise, I can stay home and just relax. I shouldn't say relax. I'm working. A lot of people have that
Right.
misnomer that you're not working from
Right.
home. But anyway, yeah, I do work from
Yeah.
home most of the time.
You must have to just randomly meet people at the library or walking on
Yeah.
trails or
I was going to say I spend time doing what I love, and that's how I met most of my friends. Either, I think, yeah, I met one gal in the spice aisle because I'm always talking to somebody. She calls me Spice Aisle Alice. But other than that, biking and hiking groups and fishing, met a lot of my fishing buddies just on the river or on the ocean, and just met people that way.
do you do stuff every day? I mean, that's kind of a weird question, but it's like you work full time and
Yeah.
the weather and everything. I see so many pictures. I just think you're fishing and just doing all these. You must just go outside and enjoy the outdoors every day.
Yeah, I usually have something going on, especially in the summer. Like you don't really sleep, especially when it's 24 hours a day. And when I was working for Daktronics, I was working Midwest hours, so working 5 a.m. Alaska time till 1:30, and then I would just hit the hiking trails or hit the creek. But now I'm working a traditional 8 to 5, and it's
Mm.
5:23 now. It's dark, but it was snowing, but I love to get out. I probably hike more in the winter than I do in the summer because summer is mostly just fishing, but I get
Hmm.
some of those stuff and some of those activities in there too. But yeah, pretty much when I get off work, I'm trying to be outside, and whether that's snowing or um, when it's sunny out too, and rain. I was gonna say we get a fair amount of rain, so nothing really keeps
Mm-hmm.
me inside. Just they always say that you don't have there's no such a thing as bad weather. There's only bad gear. So
Yeah, if you can't stay dry and warm.
yep.
Fishing, did since you grew up in Yankton and you were on the river there, did you fish a lot? Like, did that come from being with your dad or?
Yeah, we were a camping, hiking, fishing family, and I always fished with my dad, and my sister's kind of dwindled off that hobby, but even when I go back, I'll fish with him, and mom and him and I'll go, and he's been fishing a lot lately, and I just miss out. And they're, like I said, they raised my niece, she's 10, and so she's
Mm.
taken my little tomboy Alice role, and she loves to fish with grandpa, and it's just a blast to get to watch her do that. But yeah, it's nice that we had
Yeah.
those opportunities there, and I've extended it to Alaska too.
What kind of fish are you fishing for? And then are you cleaning them and bringing them home? Do you make a lot
Yeah,
of the fish?
I do. And on the ocean, it's mostly halibut, which, as you can imagine, if you're buying that in the store, gets expensive. And salmon fishing and lots of other random, but those are the two main ones. My
Mm.
freezer, I have a whole freezer that's just for fish. I had three freezers at the start of this summer. One died, but one's just for fish, and another's full of, I guess I've brought back meat from the Midwest. I'll bring back, my dad
Mm.
said, we're dangerously low on fish. They visited not this past summer 2024, but 2023. And so I got to go back in May, and he had said, we're dangerously low on fish. So I brought them fish, and I brought back Midwest beef and pork from there. So
Little exchange. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Salmon's my favorite. So that's one thing I
Yeah.
would love about that is all the salmon, the
Yeah.
fresh salmon that you would get.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Hmm. Speaking of the Midwest and what you're bringing back, what are some of I mean, you go different places and find new snacks, but now that you've been in the Midwest, grew up here, now you're in Alaska, what are some of the things that you have to have sent up to you or stock up when you come home to bring back to Alaska with you?
Without fail, I always bring back Twin Bings. Those are my favorite candy bar. I just got a package from a friend a couple months ago, and she gave me a bag of Twin Bings, and every package from my parents has Twin Bings. And I just was overseas, like I said, and I said, I have a weird question for the Midwest. If you guys think of it, like, don't go out of your way. And I wasn't done typing yet, and my friend had said Twin Bings, and so she got off the airplane and handed me some Twin Bings, and I just love them. But other than that, probably Dorothy Lynch dressing is one of the ones I always buy and bring it up here, and those are really the only two like staples that I can think of that I really love. But I do miss them.
Yeah, Twin Bings definitely. There's not really anything to take its place. Like
No,
a Snickers, you might be able to find something a little bit similar, but the Twin Bing is
yeah,
pretty iconic around
that
here.
is
I have a
it.
friend too that lived here for a while and she saw me post a picture when I was at Runnings one day of the Twin
Mm.
Bings, the King Bings. And so then she had me send her some. She's out in that New York, Rochester area.
Oh,
So,
yes.
hmm,
Nice. Can't say I blame her there.
yeah. But now that you're in Alaska, what are some of the things that you like that you can, not that you can only get there, but are more abundant, or maybe you can only get in Alaska
I would
for
say it's
food?
really nice having that fresh fish. Like I said, that freezer's full, and so salmon and halibut keeps that stocked. And then also, wild game moose this year. My friend, I got the moose down text from my friend, and then they called half an hour later, and they're like, what are you doing? And I was like, nothing. What do you need? And so I got to help harvest my first moose. So I've hunted with my dad growing up, but I've never killed anything myself. And so that was really exciting to be a part of. And we spent the whole day like cutting up moose, and then of course I got some of that for my freezer, whether moose steaks and ground. And it's actually illegal up here to buy any of that. You won't find that in a store. And like if you know friends who have it, like I can't say to them, hey, let's trade some halibut for some moose. They have to gift it to me and I have to give it to them. So you can't buy it or trade it. It has to be a gift. And a lot of different things are like that up here, include moose and I think caribou, elk, and all the wild game. So interesting, but learned a
Do you
lot about
know
that.
do you know why that is?
I don't know the history behind it, but especially like bartering is, like you knew somebody who fished and you know who somebody who hunts, so like bartering makes sense to me. But yeah, it's just
Mm-hmm.
been illegal, and there's some areas that you have to be an Alaska native to do like hunts or fishing there. Like Alaska natives are the only ones who can harvest seals and like do pelts of different kinds. Like we can trap and stuff here, but I don't know any of the history behind that. I just know that there's a lot of restrictions around it.
Hmm. That's interesting. And then the
Yeah.
bartering thing too. I mean, that's the oldest trade, before we even had paper money
Right.
to barter. And so I was just wondering, how much did
Yeah.
that, first of all, did you get a text that said moose down?
Yeah. Moose down because I knew that the guys were going the one morning and yeah, they got them. It was our group chat and moose down, and then they called like, "What are you up to?" and nothing. But I'm gonna have to look up the history behind that because yeah, I truly don't know. But
Yeah. How many pounds was that moose? Because they're
I think
huge. When I see
they're
your videos, they're
huge.
bigger than a car.
Oh my gosh. And every time I see them, like I'll be on the phone with my parents and I'll just like start cracking up and my parents will be like, dog or moose? And I'm like, moose. And like, or dogs make me crack up too. But I think just the 4 quarters of the moose, that like the weight was like 400 pounds. And that doesn't include like the ribs or anything like that. So quite a bit of meat. And they got, yeah, I can't imagine what it was to process that because we couldn't even find somebody to hang it because you want it to hang for like 7 days minimum for most people. And couldn't find somewhere to hang it unless they were processing your meat and turning it into hot dogs and those type of things. But it was a lot of meat. So I can't wait for my first one.
So you mean you'll hunt? You'll hunt for moose, do you
I would
think?
love to. I just actually took a women's becoming an outdoors woman class, and it was like the hunter safety up here. And some species you have to have a hunter safety course, whether it was when you were 12 wherever you were, but who has proof of that from their 12. But so you have to have the hunter safety course of some kind. Like I think muskox is one of them. We were just applying for our draw hunts, and I think that's one of them. But just to have more knowledge of hunting up here, I took that class, and you had to do a written test, and it took me like 8 hours to do that, like read the information and take the test. And then it was like I think 4 or 5 hour like field day where you went and like handled the guns and did all that. So I would love to. Hopefully moose or caribou are first on my list, and the deer here are
Mhm.
way smaller than the Midwest, but lots of opportunities for that. But I'll be excited to
One of
do it.
these days, yep, you'll be able to send
Yes.
your own text. Moose down.
Yes. And I'll need all
It's
hands on
Alice.
deck because it's
Yeah.
huge.
Well, yeah, I mean, a person can't even move those things by themselves,
No,
let alone
absolutely
probably two
not.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you love Alaska. You think you'll stay? I mean,
Yes.
this is home for you now.
It is home. I
Yeah.
love when I get to go see my friends and family. That's probably what I miss the most, of course, about the
Mhm.
Midwest, other than the twin bings. But I'm sure I'll call this home for a long while.
Yeah. Do your friends and family come and visit you? I mean, that's a cool place to come and see to visit, I would think.
Yeah, a couple of my college girlfriends, they moved up in June and they came in August that first year. And we had about a week to go gallivant all over. And I hadn't got my ground around me yet, but it was fun that we got to explore together. And then one of my former students, interns from Daktronics, her and her dad came, and that was, I think, 3 years ago this month. And it was fun because we all got to see the Northern Lights for the first time. And her
Oh.
dad's a farmer, and so he doesn't usually get to go on trips with her and her mom. But so they came up and he said, Laura, I thought it would be weird maybe this trip, but he's like, we were making dad jokes left and right. He's like, you could have stayed at home and Alice and I would have been fine. But yeah, that was fun. And then my parents and niece got to come last summer, and I got to show them all the things they love, including our fishing holes. And then I didn't have any guests this summer, but everybody's always says they have it on their list, so I've got a guest room for that reason.
Yeah. Plus, we'll talk about it in a minute, but you yourself travel a lot. So you get
Yeah.
your friends together. And a lot of your friend time is traveling, so we'll talk about
Yeah.
that too. It's not like you don't leave Alaska.
Yeah, no.
You have a
So
lot
that's
of
always a hard
adventures.
balance. Like I like to travel the world, but I have to go see my friends and family too. I don't want to make it sound
Mhm.
like an obligation, but I will like the balance.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing in your kitchen then, because you shared a picture once of a roasted tomato basil soup and grilled cheese on homemade
Mm.
sourdough. So you're not just making your basic, like throwing it on some bread, but you're making the soup homemade and the bread homemade.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites, and I love to make sourdough, and I don't know, it was like throw everything in the kitchen that I had for soup and that I thought would taste good. And that's one of my biggest comfort meals, a sourdough and a grilled cheese sandwich. So I like to know what's in my food. I'm one of those people. And so if I can make it from scratch, I probably will. And it's kind of a hard balance sometimes with being on the go so much. It's nice to have something to throw in the crock pot, but also I love a home cooked meal. And my grandmas and my aunts and my parents always cooked. So it just was instilled in me from a young age.
What about bread making? Did you grow up making bread or have you taught that to yourself as an adult?
That was a self-taught. My uncle gave me a lot of grief. He's like, your aunt used in Alaska, a lot of people make their own bread. And he's like, your aunt used to make sourdough like 2 loaves a week, 3 loaves a week. And it was the first week I got here. I got like 100-plus-year-old sourdough starter from like a booth, and this lady had a book. And so I got some of her sourdough starter, and I've been on that same starter ever since and mailed it to other people like dried. And so that was like a self-taught kind of a learning curve. My friends who start now, they're like, this is so intimidating, but sourdough, I wouldn't say an expert, but a lot of people come to me for that now. So
Hmm.
that was a new thing.
What are some of your go-to things that are kind of easy to have to make?
I like sheet pan vegetables and like roasted, and then kind of like the andouille sausage, those like rounded, talking with my hands and realizing no one can see me, but the sausages, they actually sell, this is funny because we just talked about wild game, you can't sell it, but reindeer you can buy. So reindeer sausage, I'll chop that up and put it with veggies and toss it on rice or quinoa, and that's a go-to. Or I'll throw just a roast pork or beef in the crock pot with vegetables, and that's a quick meal. And then my other probably go-to is Buddha bowls. It was a thing in Yankton, South Dakota, and it was like, I mean, you have your grain like your rice or your quinoa, and then like a protein chicken, and then all the veggies, and I just toss that all together and in a bowl, and usually make that at the beginning of the week and have it throughout the week. So easy, and can sometimes eat it on the run.
Yeah. Did you say Buddha bowl?
Yeah, I don't know why they
Okay.
call it that. There's a place that's called the Mint in Yankton. You'll have to check it out if you're ever down there. But they change up their Buddha bowl every week, and whether it's like buffalo chicken or barbecue chicken, and then all different kinds of veggies in there, and usually a grain. But they're very good. Cooking for one is a learning curve, especially I came from a family of five too. So even when I would cook at home for us, it was a lot of food, and I always end up with more food. And I have friends right here in Eagle River, like, come over I made moose spaghetti 2 nights ago, and I'm gonna be eating moose spaghetti till it comes out my nose. So I had a couple friends over, but
You must really have a taste. I mean, some people do. They really have a taste for that wild game.
yeah.
I mean, it's an acquired taste, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I really like it. I always have. My dad and mom used to hunt growing up, and like they would go elk hunting, and I just have always loved it, but I know not everybody does.
And back to the reindeer for just a second. If there's any children listening to this, she's not talking about like Rudolph and Prancer. Those are not the reindeer that
No.
Alice is eating.
No. It's a family of the caribou, and some people will use those interchangeably, like I'm eating caribou or I'm eating reindeer, but reindeer are just a little bit smaller than caribou, but tastes delicious.
Gosh. All right. So I asked you to please share some recipes, and you picked out three that you're going to share. So
Yes.
start with whichever one, and then share just kind of the story behind it too, if there is one. Sometimes there is, sometimes there's not. Sometimes it's just something that you love to make.
Yeah. I was gonna say I was gonna go through and make like a three-course meal, but then I was going through my recipe box. I'm like, nope, this one, this one. So my first one is potatoes Romanoff, and I got this one from my friend Jill. We met in when I was in college, and it was when I was managing Einstein Bagels on campus, and everybody was really excited about what they got on Black Friday, like clothes and this and that. And I was like, I got a sewing machine. And so she was, I think, in her 50s at the time, but that, and I was living in the dorm. So I would always go over to her house and be up in her sewing room making a quilt, and she would be downstairs cooking for me. And then I learned a lot of quilting from her, even though from a long line of quilters, and then a lot of cooking from her. But this potatoes Romanoff recipe is one of her recipes adapted, I think, from somewhere else she got it. But essentially, when you have your leftover baked potatoes, the next day you're making potatoes Romanoff because you're shredding a baked potato and adding cheese and sour cream and spices and then topping it with more cheese. And it's just one of my favorite. I love potatoes, but it's one of my favorite comfort foods.
You are an old soul. If she you were in college and she's 50
Yes.
something and you're up sewing,
Yes.
that's funny.
She's one of the friends, her and her husband, I always see when I'm home in Brookings. It's hard to fit
Oh,
everybody in Yankton and Brookings, but I always
yeah.
see them when I'm home, and we've maintained a long friendship. But
That's good. Women need that in their lives. We need that.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So the potatoes Romanoff, is it similar to like a choice baked potato kind of thing? Are you baking it again?
Similar, yes, but you're shredding the potatoes with the skin on, like in a pan, and then you mix it with sour cream and cheese and kind of fold that together. And then yes, you do bake it again, mostly to get it hot and to have that melted cheese on the top, but it's so cozy.
Potatoes and cheese are why I cannot diet. And
Fair. I
sour
feel that in
cream.
my soul.
Yeah, and bread.
Yeah,
Lots of things, but definitely
fair.
potatoes. So, but I'm looking at it here. I see you have a note. I mean, you can top it with broccoli. So here's a
Yeah.
way to get our vegetables.
I don't know if I ever have done that, but that's what Jill wrote on my recipe. But I just like the traditional potatoes and sour cream. Sometimes I'll do Greek yogurt for a little bit extra protein, but
Hmm. I like when I make baked potatoes, I'll often make extra. It's like you get all these potatoes out of the oven, and I'll say to Jason, now we are not supposed to be all eating all of these tonight, the two of us. There are supposed to be extras so I can
yep.
slice them and fry them in the morning, like with eggs and
Yeah.
bacon and
Oh,
stuff.
that's the
So
best way.
yeah, I like to do extra baked potatoes. So this will be another reason why. Cool. Okay, I'll post that one on Random Sweets so that people can see that one. What's another one?
The next one is roasted shrimp enchiladas, and I think I just found this one online and adapted to whatever worked for me, but some shrimp is something I usually have in the freezer, whether it's for me to eat or for bait, which I know sounds crazy, but that's what I just made this recipe like a month or so ago, but it was leftover like cooked shrimp that I had from using as bait to catch salmon. But anyway, yeah, just basic shrimp, and there's peppers in there, cabbage if you have it, spinach. I've made it without both those things, just whatever I have. And then it has like a
Mhm.
really creamy white sauce, like with touch of jalapeno. And it's also just comfort food. I always think of enchiladas as like we always went out for Mexican when we were gonna go eat out, and that was like our family thing, but I just like to make it at home too. So it's a
Mhm.
good one.
I'm not a huge shrimp fan, but I'm looking at it going, oh, it would be really good though as like when we make fish tacos,
Yeah.
you could put a diced tilapia or something like that in there, and
Oh
I
yeah.
think that looks like all those ingredients would go really well with that too.
Yeah, I should make it with
Mhm.
halibut because I have halibut coming out my ears too. And just yeah, I just gave
Yeah.
I had so much halibut. The guy I'm seeing, he has a boat, and so like almost every weekend this summer we're out on the boat getting halibut, and we just had our United Way campaign at work, and everybody's on the committee like, what can we all give and contribute? And I was like, I have halibut, and everybody's like, you're giving this stuff away, and I'm like, yes, I am, but I'll have to give that recipe a shot with that too.
You're like, well, I can't sell it. I can only gift it. So
Yeah,
yes, I'm
exactly.
giving it away.
People are always asking too. Once they hear you have a ton, they're like, "Oh, Alice." But
Hmm. Good. I see the tortilla. I like tortillas too. You've got flour
hmm
corn, but corn is my
yeah,
favorite. Yeah,
yeah, I like
I
corn
like
as
them.
the best.
Okay, and then I think there's cookies. You're going to share a cookie recipe?
Yes. This one is Danish butter cookies, and I mean
Mm.
my family a lot of Danes, but this was my grandma Joyce's, and I've had a lot of other recipes, but I like this one the best. And I brought this. One of my coworkers had me over for Christmas last year because I didn't travel back to South Dakota, and they were gone within like half an hour, and there were like a bunch of hungry hockey boys and girls, and he coaches hockey, and he's like, come join us. But and then my friends always request them too, so it's always a quick throw together. They do have to cool and a couple hours in the fridge, but they're worth the wait.
Okay, these are the kind that you roll into a log. Okay.
Yep.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
And then you're slicing them. Lots of butter. These sound really good.
Yeah, they're my one of my favorites. I think I like the blue tin that's you never know if it's sewing supplies or if it's actual cookies, the Danish cookies, but
Oh
um
yeah.
that's what I think of when I think of the flavor of these. It's like that sugar, dusted
Oh,
sugar and but very buttery.
did you make these with your grandma Joyce?
Yeah, yep. It's funny too because gosh, I don't know, she passed away a few years ago too, and I was just thinking like all my fond memories of my grandma Joyce, and they were all surrounded around her kitchen, whether we had like a quilt stretched over the kitchen table or we were cooking or baking something, and we did a lot of canning. A lot of my canning knowledge came from Grandma Joyce. That's my mom's mom, but just trying to think of all those fun things. And I actually got a tattoo of her Pyrex and on my arm. And it's
Are
like
you
it's not a
serious?
common one, and I can't remember what it's called. It's like a blue flowers, and I don't know. I never was like I would have never thought of that, but it's so cute, and it reminds me of my grandma every time I see it. So we were very
Oh,
close.
I love that.
Yeah.
Who did somebody get her Pyrex stuff? Like I always wonder when you do you get to pass
So
those down? Because I have a few of my grandma's things, nothing patterned, but
yeah.
who
She had
has
the
her dishes?
she had the crazy daisy, and I ended up with those. Like that made the Alaska move, and then the primary colors ones. But I have so much of the crazy daisy, but I don't know who ended up with that one. And I've been trying to figure it out because we lost my aunt and uncle this year too, and I didn't know if one of them had it.
Mm.
And gosh, what is that called? I have to look now. It's a milk glass navy blue summer. It's just the most darling pattern, and obviously nobody else is on video here, but yeah, it's just so cute. But I just she had so much Pyrex. So I feel like she had 6 kids, and I feel like every kid got a Pyrex. Like she had a lot of grandkids, like so much Pyrex. But yeah, I've been trying to nail that down, and I think my mom said that my cousin ended up with it after my uncle passed, but I'm still trying to play detective on that. Even just a cup would be cozy for me to have.
She must have had, did she? Yeah, she must have had a lot of different patterns. It's not like she had
Hmm.
one pattern and
Yeah, she had a
yeah.
bunch.
They're so cute. And every time you go to like an antique store or something, I always see a pattern that I've never seen. I mean,
Yeah,
I have no idea how many patterns they ever made, but
yeah, I don't
it's
know.
a
And I
lot.
guess, yeah, you can see here probably. Um, that
Oh,
one's a
that
little
is
bit
so
different, but yeah,
cute.
it's the blue, and but yeah, I'm the same way if I go thrifting, which I love to do that in my spare time too, quote unquote spare time. But yeah, I'm always seeing a different one, and they're always fun to see. Or like if I post something, somebody will respond on Snapchat or Instagram like, "Oh, my grandma had that pattern." If I'm cooking or baking with those bowls, so
Mm,
my sourdough goes in the crazy daisy bowls, and just fun.
that one, the tattoo that you just showed me that you got, it has sort of that Nordic, kind of a Nordic feel to
Hmm.
it with those flowers. It's pretty.
Which
Yeah.
it's funny because I said we're Danish, but Klopstad, my parents they met in Beersford, South Dakota, but my dad, Klopstad, there's a place in Norway called Klopstad Village. And so, yes, that reminds me of my home as well, like, or my ancestors, but it's fun.
Yeah. Did she write things down?
She
Like
did.
this
And
recipe, did you have to get it from her?
I got it from her and it was just scribbled and like almost didn't make sense. And same thing, like I'd asked for her apple butter recipe years ago and she didn't have ratios of anything. So it was like kind of dump. And I've become that way too. And so when people ask me for a recipe, I'm like, good luck. I mean, I made this new macaroni and cheese last night. I was just craving comfort food and that's what I wanted. But yeah, somebody asked for the recipe this morning and I'm like, kind of, I can give it to you. But yeah, Grandma Joyce always had, I don't know if people ended up with her cookbooks, but one of the years for her, it was either her birthday or my grandparents' anniversary. They took recipes from all the family and like made a book and all the kids got a book of it and then the grandkids got a CD of it. So I really would like a printed, like that tangible touch, just like regular books that I could have. But
Yeah. Yeah, so many of those that older generation, they didn't write things down. My
no,
grandma's white cookies are it's the ingredients and then I think it's just like mix and bake.
yes,
I did bake those with her side by side in her kitchen to teach. And I'm like, Grandma, I mean, I just wrote half a page in a notebook of,
yeah,
you don't have everything written down here. People can't figure out how to make this stuff. So then you wonder, when people are always like, "Oh, I have so and so's recipe, but when I make it, it's
Yeah,
just not the same." Well, that's because they're
exactly.
not writing everything down.
My friend Jill, the one who the potatoes Romanoff, I'll tell her that I made something, and she always tells me, "Well, you didn't make it with enough love." And I say that to people. If it doesn't turn out the same, you have to come here for me to make it for you if you want it to taste the same. But
Well, let's transition to traveling. You just got back like
yeah.
last week from an incredible trip, it looks like, to Spain. So I just want to learn about your traveling. And again, people, I think Jason just told me the other day that he was listening to something, Stuart Varney or somebody he was listening to, and that they were talking about people wanting to do experiences more now, that people are more
Hmm.
into experiences than buying things. So they're traveling, going to concerts, etc. Um, Tell us where you've traveled and some of your favorite memories.
Yeah, I just got back from Spain last week, and that was like an organized trip, but my friends and I added Portugal onto that, which it's right there, so we figured might as well. And I'm a huge foodie, so I'm always most excited about that when I travel. And their food was wonderful. They have tapas, which means like small plates. So everywhere you go, you're getting like small plates and you're sharing with everybody, which kind of like appetizers, but that was fun. And my friend asked me like, how many countries have you been to? And I had never made a list, but outside of the US, it's now 10. So
Jeez.
um, Greece was last September. That was, again, the food was insane and the views were an added bonus. And then I got to go to Austria on the way back from there. I had a long layover, so I made the most of that and got an Airbnb and got to have some pork schnitzel, I think, on the way. And they're famous for their hot chocolate, so that was really fun. And gosh, in Spain, we got to take a cooking class, which was really cool. That was part of our day, and we had gone over this castle that was super ancient, and they're just ornate buildings and things all over. But we went to this cooking class, and we made gazpacho, which cold soup, if you're not familiar, and we got to make paella, which is like veggies and rice and chicken, and that was delicious. I wasn't sure if I was going to like that. And then a chocolate custard dish, and then a sangria in that class. So just fun that we actually got to make the stuff and learn a little bit of Spanish along the way. That gal is a Spanish teacher, and she uses a kitchen as her tool, which was fun. I've been to Morocco. That was my first. I'd been to Mexico, the first place I ever went out of the country, a couple times, but Morocco was the big one. That was with my friends. That was the first place one of my friends ever traveled outside of the country. So it was a big leap to go to Africa, and their food and their shopping and markets. That was a blast too. So always say like everything's on my list. So eventually I'll get there. But again, the balance thing. When do I go see my family, and what do I use my PTO on this round? But I just
Mm.
love to gallivant all over the world.
What do you have a place or two that are kind of what's next on your list?
I would love to go to Peru. If you've
Mm.
seen my history of Christmas cards, I think I'm on year 11 this year, but I love alpacas and llamas, and so to go see those and Machu Picchu. But Norway's on my list, family heritage, and my ultimate all-time top of the list is New Zealand. I just think it's gorgeous there, and I would love to make it there, but
Hmm.
we'll see what's next.
Are you taking like one trip a year, or how often are you going?
Just depends. This year we had gone last September to Greece, and then we were, just kind of chit-chatting, and flights were $400 to Europe, and I can't even like they're sitting at $1,000 back to South Dakota. So we went to London and Ireland in February, and I think that whole trip, I mean, it was just stupid cheap, and it just made sense at the time, and it was just
Yeah.
three of us. I met one of her friends I'd never met before, and we met in London, and then yeah, it just depends on things. But I like to shoot for one a year. A couple years there, I didn't go on any, mostly COVID related, and saving money and cost of living is higher up here, so trying to find that sweet spot. But I like to
Sure.
get out a year. But
You've traveled enough that you've probably improved your packing, how to squeeze everything in. And what are some of those tips? I sometimes say, what are your favorite airport snacks? And there were, when I did that last time before we went to, I think it was Utah in the spring, at least three or four people that don't know each other or anything, all different people said the nerds gummies.
Oh, I love those.
And
That's
I'm
so
like,
funny.
I don't know about that, but okay. And so I didn't buy them for that trip. Somebody even asked me later, did you try them? I still hadn't tried them. And then one of my friends, Shannon, who was on the podcast not too long ago, she sent me a really cool care package recently with homemade raspberry jam and maple
Ooh,
syrup tapped from their trees. And there was a bag of those gummy nerds, and they're addicting. They are
they
good.
are. I love those. It's funny you say that because one of my favorite questions to ask my friends and family is, what are your three, if you're going on a road trip, you're going to a gas station, what are three snacks you're grabbing? What do you got?
Mm. Are you asking me?
Yeah, I want to know.
Oh, well, definitely there has to be a mix of salty and sweet.
Yep.
And I would probably say the salty would be plain potato chips or some sort of nuts, and most likely cashews. I love cashews. And for
Nice.
sweet, especially if I'm traveling, I like peanut M&Ms.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, Alice, I don't know if you can get these in Alaska, but right now they have peanut M&Ms that are called Christmas M&Ms, and I'm not
Oh,
into all their big flavors. I usually just don't try them. I don't like them. I do the mint ones because I like
yeah.
those on my pretzel with Hershey Kiss thing for Christmas.
Uh-huh.
But I decided to try these because I read somewhere somebody said they have sort of a maple flavor.
Ooh.
They do. It's
Oh, I'm
like a
gonna have to
maple,
look.
it's like a maple peanut M&M, and they're so good.
I can't keep up sometimes with the M&Ms, and like if it's usually like a release thing in South Dakota, it usually takes like 2 to 3 weeks before it hits Alaska, and whether it's like coming on the barge or whatever. But it's just like M&Ms and Oreos, I can't keep up. I don't know if you
Oh,
remember at Daktronics, there was like a group that tasted all the Oreos as they came in, and then they would take tack the packages up on the outside of their cubicle, and so you'd walk by and just new flavors. But I'll have to look
I
for that
didn't know
M&M
that.
one. But um,
Yeah.
I
I,
guess for
I
me, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I also will get the at Trader Joe's. They have little packages of green olives, and I love green olives.
Ah,
And those are just kind of a nice size when you're on an airplane. You're like, I need a salty snack, whatever. And then I like those green olives. So, okay,
I
you go.
love those. I was gonna say the green olives are so good for you, and that's like one of my favorite things. So when we were in Greece, that was the best because we always had olives. But somebody mentioned yesterday, I was asking, we have this group here called Find All of the Things, and it started somebody was looking for olives, and then now it's like I'm looking for a mechanic who does this or who can fit me in. Or and yesterday I posted and I said I'm looking for the best crab rangoon in the area, and somebody had said like. It's better homemade, whatever, that's fine. And she messaged me on the side and it was a video of making those, but she said that the best sauce for that is the sweet and sour Trader Joe's. And we do not have a Trader Joe's up here. And I've never lived in a place with a Trader Joe's. Like the closest place was like Omaha or
Yep.
Minneapolis.
Yep.
And so I always say, like, my friends will go out of state and they're like, do you need anything from Trader Joe's? And like, other than spices, like I need to go in Trader Joe's and let Trader Joe's tell me what I need. But the olives,
It does.
I do love those. But that sweet woman, like the camaraderie around here, she offered me a free, she's like, I have an extra bottle of that. So tomorrow when I go to town to distribute that halibut, I'm gonna
Oh,
stop by that woman's house. And I was like, well, let me know what I owe you. She's like, this one's on me. So very, very, very sweet. But I do miss a Trader Joe's and olives. But um, circling back around I mean, snacks I like at the airport usually, I mean, my gas station snacks if I'm going on a road trip, beef jerky, pumpkin seeds, and maybe a peanut butter Snickers if I'm picking. But
mm.
airport similar. I want something snacky, and usually a trail mix is what I land on. And yeah.
Beef jerky. I like the little bites, like the little
Mm-hmm.
pork bites. Jack Link's
Yeah.
has little pork bites. They're kind of hard to find around here. I can find them at Target sometimes in Sioux Falls,
Yeah.
but sometimes they have to ship them to me because they're like, oh, sorry, we're out. Now we have to ship them to you. But they're really soft. They're not
Yeah.
like
Those
all
are my
chewy
favorite.
and stuff, but those are really good too.
Yeah.
When you're is there any food when you're traveling? Because you're talking about all these places and all the amazing food, and it sounds like you're just gutless. You'll try whatever. Is
Yeah.
there anything that's a hard no that you're like, no, I'm not sorry, I'm not doing that.
Um, my old boss at Daktronics said that they were served chicken feet, and I think that would be a hard pass for me. But I mean, this trip, yeah, my boyfriend asked me, like, did you eat any weird food? And my friend, we were talking about how we describe our friends to people. And Laura said, like, I would say that you eat weird food. And but yeah, when we were in Spain, Pepe, our like one of our guides there, he was like, he would order organs or
Ah,
gosh, what else did we have? We had organs. When we were in Portugal, it was sardines was a big export. So we like went to the shop and I was like never so happy about a sardine trip and like gosh,
really?
liver pate I tried. They'd have that at breakfast and fish eggs. What's that called? I'm blanking.
Caviar?
Caviar. So I had sturgeon eggs and I'd had salmon eggs, and which is weird because I use salmon eggs as bait. And so then when I went to Christmas at Brad's house, who invited me last year, I had it to eat, and I was like, "This is so weird for me," because I like use a cure on it for bait. And anyway, but there's other than chicken feet, I can't imagine not trying something. But
Wow, you truly are a foodie. I am not that brave. Yeah, so good for you. That's,
yeah. I would say too for travel, you asked on tricks. Packing
yeah,
cubes are been a lifesaver, and then I mean the compressible ones they start with like big, and then you can zip them down, and then I started just keeping a running list of things I would need. And when we went to Morocco, everybody's like laughing because we had such big bags, and they weren't even that actually that big, but depending on where you're going, like I left half my suitcase empty because I knew I was going to be shopping in Morocco, and so then I had that whole thing, and then I had the vacuum seal bags too. So never, my friends call me Mama Al, and Mama Al, can I have one of those vacuum bags? And I'm like, you guys were laughing at me before, but and then I was in South Dakota at the time, so I was like bringing a bunch of people's stuff back, and but save room if you know you're going to shop. Basically, is one of my biggest hot tip.
yeah. What do you do if you're in a like a layover for a long time in the airport?
A book is my go-to, and that's yeah when I have space, I'll bring an actual book with me like usual. And then I've started to see a lot more in airports, the free little libraries in the area. And even in the
Seriously?
airport, so and in Seattle, I saw a free little library. So I was trying to finish my book while I was in Spain and Portugal, but I didn't finish it. So I had that one the whole trip. But yeah, it's very cool to me that that's catching on more and more.
I grabbed I don't know, we had a, it wasn't a layover. Jason just was sick of traffic in Minneapolis and we were way, way ahead of schedule. And he's like, screw it, we're going to the airport. It's like 5, 6 hours.
Oh
And I'm
my
like, "Well,
gosh.
we could go where, whatever." And no, so we sat at the airport. So I ended up buying myself a word search find.
Oh, there you go.
And those are pretty brainless, right? Like you don't, they're not
Yeah.
crossword puzzles. But in that bookstore, I saw Myrtle, so like Wordle,
Oh,
but Myrtle, and it's little tips and whatever, and you kind of have to be detective, and then you get to the point
yeah.
where you're figuring out they're kind of like um funny, kind of like the game of Clue, right? Like they're not
Oh,
real
nice.
murder
Yeah.
stories or anything weird like that. But so that you can kind of be it looked interesting. I didn't get one, but I'm like, I could see where that could kill a little bit of time too. Read
Yeah.
device.
I love a word search. Like I'll have my medicine infusions every 6 months, and so I'm sitting there for like 8 hours a day. And so I'll have my like book, I'll have my word search, and I used to do Sudoku, or however you say that.
I don't
But
know how
now
to
I
say
just, I was
it.
gonna say now I just reading or a word search or my jive.
Right. Alice, we're going to talk about dogs. So get everybody get your Kleenexes. We're kind of wrapping up to the end. We're leaving this until the end in case we're bawling our eyes out. We got to just push stop. But my family is a huge dog lover family. My mom always had a dog. We had a dog. I had a dog, Maui Shores. Um, when she died, I couldn't get myself to get another one. And then as we got older, it was just easier to come and go without one, then we just didn't. But my sister Callie has 4 dogs.
Oh,
Heidi has a dog, my older sister, and she in the last year has lost 2 dogs, one very, very
mm.
unexpectedly. So we just we know what it's like. And then my son Sajan just had to put his dog Rowdy down, who had been almost 17 years old
Oh
and had
wow.
gotten hit by a car on the highway. He was a tiny little thing. And that happened quite a few years ago. And he was pretty much dead. I think Todd brought the dog home for them to say goodbye. And Sajan's like, we're not going to just let him go. And so he nursed him back to life and has been, alive for many years since. So
Oh,
you
wow.
had a beautiful dog, Rambo.
I did.
And if you want to share, I just want to hear about Rambo because he touched the hearts of a lot of people, even just taking photos and pictures in Alaska.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've always dog sat. I shouldn't say always. I always had dogs growing up, and then in Brookings I dog sat. Like I remember a time at Daktronics, I was sitting on break reading, and somebody came up to me and they're like, "You're Alice, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "I hear you dog sit." And anyway, word of mouth and did a lot of that. But like I said, I didn't know anybody when I moved up here, and I started dog sitting. Had my past clients like write reviews for me, and one of the gals, the first person I dog sat for, she's like, "Do you like red salmon?" And like gave me a tip of red salmon. And then another gal, she gave me halibut. But that salmon gal, like they moved to Mexico, and she asked like if I would come there and watch their dog. And it didn't end up happening. I had the company coming to Alaska and it was overlapping, but we joked like Alice the traveling dog sitter. But in
Wow.
Brookings, I could never have a dog in my place, like in my apartments or whatever. And anyway, my friend up here, I dog sat for her, and we actually met in a cafe. We were the only two in the cafe, and I had my hat on that said, "Hold my drink, I gotta pet this dog." And so she had asked me if I dog sit, and like a friendship blossomed, and I dog sat for them quite a bit. But anyway, that friend was the one who there's these pages on Facebook called Free Pets of Alaska, and she kept tagging me in every single dog, like it's time for you to get your own. And I would like those comments and whatever, but she tagged me into one of Rambo, and he was at the time I think 5 months old and Malamute. They said husky, but he was by the time he grew, I knew that he was a Malamute. He was ginormous. But anyway, I saw Rambo and messaged these people. It was a young military couple. They got Rambo, got another dog, then got pregnant and maybe like early 20s and had to decide which dog to give up. So on 11/11, a little over a year ago, I went to go get Rambo and met in the PetSmart parking lot and cannot go to that parking lot without crying now. But
Oh.
um, yeah, I got Rambo and named him Rambo 11 Klopstad since I got him on 11/11, and we did everything. We hiked, and he didn't love the car, but he knew if he would got in the car, he was going on a hike, and he loved to bike next to me. We went camping this summer, and but yeah, he was I bet 125 pounds, just this big boy and such a personality and so fun. But yeah, I went to a bike ride by myself, and Rambo didn't come with me, and he was at home. He turned 1 in May, and anyway, I had to go to the store after, so I came home and brought my bike home and kissed his little forehead. He was just snoozing, and I didn't think anything of it, even a 1-year-old puppy, and kissed his forehead and went to the store, and I was maybe gone 20 minutes, and I came home and he had passed on. So just pretty tragic and just a 1-year-old puppy, but they suspect a tumor or something that had burst, and just we didn't get a year together. And I I live alone, and so just every corner of this place is filled with him, and he loved the snow. So I got back from Spain and Portugal and saw the snow, and that was devastating, and I miss him quite a bit.
Hmm. And dog lovers get it. And it's hard. It's not a person, but the emptiness feels like that,
Oh
especially
man.
when like you said, you're there by yourself and Rambo was your
Yeah.
company and your
Hmm.
movement and your companion and your buddy to go do the things with. And it takes a long time, I think. Um, and you don't get over it. I mean, people could ramble no matter how many dogs a person's had in their life, they're going to be able to name off every single one of them because you don't forget.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
true. I was gonna say everybody always asks if I'm gonna get another dog, and that was so traumatic. I don't know that I'll ever be in that place again, but it
Mhm.
was my first dog as my own. And like I said, I grew up with dogs, but Rambo was mine and I was his, and just been really hard. And you can tell when not dog people don't get it, but my phone gives me an image of the day, and Rambo always pops up in his dopey grin and
Aw.
big tongue is black and white, and oh, he was such a character. But
Yeah. Think of all the love that you gave to him, best dog life ever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I loved him.
I'm so sorry that happened.
Thanks.
We don't know why, right? That's what sucks. We
No.
were not supposed to ask why, but you do.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and the whole getting another dog, I mean, that's totally a person's preference. When Heidi
Ugh.
lost her puppy that she had gotten because they had lost their dog that was a little bit older, but yet not quite old enough to think that
Hmm.
he needed to be put down when that happened, then she got another dog. And then that was an unexpected, within months or whatever.
Yeah.
She's still devastated about that dog, but
Ugh.
yet she turned around and got another one right away because she said, she's like, I can't imagine my life without him,
Hmm.
without a dog. So
Yeah.
everybody's different. And in your own time, in your own heart, what's right. And hopefully you don't hopefully you don't have a friend tagging you every day on that Facebook
Not
group. You gotta
anymore,
get
no.
a dog.
But
Be
no,
very
it's
sensitive about that.
in the immediate wake of losing Rambo. My friends were trying to like make sure I ate and whatever,
Yeah.
and they were like, come on, like there are other dogs out there that need your love. You got to keep going. And I'm still in the trenches, I feel like, but yeah, not as
Yeah.
many dog tags. But yeah, like I said, I'll see a moose or a dog, and I'll just laugh. They're just I've never met a dog I didn't like, and they're a special place in your heart for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, and you got to take care of yourself first. So with Sagen having to put his dog down too and being by himself, it was hard for him. And yeah, he's just got to take care of himself and get back to a
Hmm.
place where sure, you're still going to cry and you're going to wake up in the morning and that part of your routine and the hugs and kisses
Yeah.
aren't going to be there. And it's going to be a while before. Yeah. So,
Yeah. Rambo, we talked about sourdough. Rambo loved sourdough, and I have videos of him like Malamutes are very talkative, if you didn't know that. And
uh-uh.
it just like me like holding a piece of bread, and he would just like holler at me and talk to me. And he loved sourdough. I've not made sourdough since he passed. Like I made it like two
Oh,
days before he passed, and obviously unknowingly, but he
yeah.
was happy. I can't remember. It was summer is just busy. I don't make bread as often, but he just like he would get so happy when I made sourdough bread. So like things like that or cheese tax, and I just little things make you cry, but
Yeah.
happy to
Yeah.
have known him and had him.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to. Did you send me a picture of Rambo?
Yeah, yeah, there's a few in there.
Yes. All right. So when I post this on the blog with your recipes, we will put a beautiful picture of Rambo so everybody can see how easy he was to love. Did
Yes.
you say 125 pounds?
Yeah, I would bet he was 125 when he passed, and
Oh my God.
gosh, he was a big boy.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I don't want to end on a sad note. So just can you share a little bit about, again, you just take these, I don't really want to say risks, but some people get comfortable in their life and they go to work and they come home and you're viewing life through a different lens, I think, Alice, than a lot of people and older people too. So me, I'm in my 50s and to try new things and to get out there and do stuff. And of course, some things come down to finances, right? People might be
Hmm.
like, I can't travel all the time, but there's so many things that you can do even locally that don't cost money or
Yeah.
much money to do. Just what what is getting you to just say, I'm going out to do this? It makes me happy and this is what I want to do.
I would say, I guess I previously said life's short, and that's what got me to move here. But, I mentioned my aunt and uncle. I lost an aunt and uncle this year, and Rambo, and lost another aunt and a cousin to war, and friends, and it's just short. And I have a chronic illness. I have MS, and so I just don't know, what the future brings, and I want to drink it all in. And we don't know. I mean, I could leave here now and get hit by a car. Like none of us know, and I just want to drink it all in. There's so much life has to offer, and I just say go for it. And I mean, say, and money-wise too. There's only so much money in a day, but you can't take it with you when you go. So whether it's travel that sets your soul on fire, or fishing, or hiking, or whatever, there's always time to do it, and I'm gonna be out there doing it rather than sitting home scrolling most of the time. Not that I don't do that too, but yeah, life's short.
Right. And you're choosing to do it with people instead of saying, well, it's just me, I'm by myself.
Yeah,
You're making friends and
yeah,
including people in that journey.
absolutely.
So it's
And
fun.
say, and I don't, if nobody wants to go, I go alone. So if nobody wants to go on a hike or go fishing, I'll hit the creek by myself and talk to 80-year-old fishermen. And I mean, I just don't let that stop me either, but go alone.
How,
It's my
how do you
advice.
great advice. I love it. You have, yeah, those vibes of just doing what you love. If you're going alone, how are you fighting off the bears?
I'll tell my dad, like when I moved here and nobody, no, I wasn't gonna hike or fish with anybody or be out on the hiking trail with the bears and the moose. Dad's like, "Do you have your bear spray at least?" Because I didn't carry and whatever, but just I always tell somebody where I'm at and be aware. I'd like to hike at populated trails if I wasn't actually going with somebody and just be careful. Don't be reckless,
Mm.
but don't sit at home either. Don't let the fear stop you.
Yeah. That's a total mom question, but I had to ask
I get it a
Alice.
lot. No worries.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I love talking to you. You're just a gem. Do you have anything else that you want to share?
Thank you. I don't think so. It's been so fun. Like I said, we haven't got to catch up in a long time, and it's fun to hear recipes on your other podcast. So I'm glad to be able to contribute and hope to connect with people who like to cook and you get lots of fun recipes too.
Yeah, absolutely. And your potatoes and those cookies for sure. And those shrimp enchiladas, I'm sure people will give those a try. I might try
Yeah.
them, but with fish. I have some fresh
Yes.
fish in my freezer that might go really well with that recipe.
Yum.
So
Yes, you'll have to give them a
anything with
shot.
cilantro.
Fair. Yes.
All right. Well, thanks, Alice in Alaska.
Thank
Adventures
you.
of Alice in Alaska.
Thank you. Thank you.
I really like the idea of taking a cooking class while on vacation. Kalani and I were just talking about this the other day and how it was better than buying a souvenir to bring back with you because instead you have a new culinary experience and a new recipe from that region. So, not something you need to put on your shelf, but something you get to bring back and share with others. So, and Alice and I, we talked briefly about reading, but I want you to know how much reading Alice actually does. So in 2024, she squeezed in reading 39,862 pages, and that was from 110 books. If you like to read, if you're on Goodreads, you can find her on Goodreads. I shared the link to her Goodreads in the show notes and then also in the blog post that goes with this episode on randomsweets.com, along with those photos and the recipes that she shared. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for pressing play. I hope you subscribe or follow Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens so you don't miss a thing. If you're enjoying this podcast, please share it with a friend. I'll be back in a few weeks with more food, stories, and adventures from the Midwest. I'm your host, Staci Mergenthal. Sweet wishes.